The power is being turned off even more frequently. Did Trump agree to Russia's demands? And have the Germans finally dared to give Ukraine the Taurus missiles? This and more today on TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and leave your comments. And now a few more topics from today's episode. People may still be trapped under the rubble. Stories of pain and miraculous rescue. It's
the miracle how he survived. I've never seen people survive like that.
After the Russian terrorist attack in Ternopil, there is mourning for the victims. And the search for survivors continues. He survived 2 severe injuries and was awarded the Order of Courage.
Every day, enemy vehicles attack. Every day, 2 or 3 times. Every day, constant infantry assaults, constant attacks. And
how a metallurgist from Zaporizhzhia led his comrades out of encirclement and what brings him back to life. The story of Dmitro, Athena, and Mariupol.
A hall full of people. This is just the first episode. My hands and legs were literally shaking.
How real events from the life of a Ukrainian Marine and his loyal dog were brought to life on the Lutsk stage. And who got the most important roles? Victims of the strike on Ternopil are receiving assistance in 4 city hospitals. There are still 35 adults and 17 children there. There are 12 critical patients in intensive care units, including 2 minors. In total, nearly 100 people have sought medical help. The youngest victim is 3 months old among the injured, with severe injuries, shrapnel wounds to the abdominal cavity, lungs, and liver. A lot of blood had to be transfused, doctors say, and its supply was replenished thanks to hundreds of city residents who stood in long lines for 2 days to become donors for the wounded. One of the burn victims, an elderly woman, was transferred from the city emergency hospital to the burn center in Lviv.
As of today, we have 3 patients in the intensive care unit. Their condition has been stabilized. There are many patients. Many were immediately taken to the operating room as their injuries were severe and required surgical intervention. Accordingly, all of them received medical assistance. As of today, all the patients, those who are currently in the hospital, are considered to be in stable condition.
More than 20 people, including children, may still be trapped under the rubble. There are many apartment buildings in Ternopil. A rescue and search operation has been ongoing there for the 2nd day. Emergency workers from 9 regions of Ukraine are involved. A combined drone and missile attack on the city has already claimed the lives of 26 people. 3 of them are children and nearly 100 more are injured. Alapaz has gathered all the details of the Russian terrorist attack.
People are bringing things to the buildings destroyed by Russian missiles. Toys, flowers, they light candles. There is no such thing as someone else's grief here. Residents of Ternopil come to support those affected. With every hour, there are more and more of them. They come alone or bring their children with them.
The pain of these people is the pain of all Ternopil residents. At a time like this, everyone needs to stick together and support one another.
Honestly, I just wanted to see it for myself, to open my eyes to how much harm Russia has done. I feel so incredibly sorry for those children.
More than 20 residents of this building are still out of contact. One of them is an 86-year-old woman whose apartment is on the 6th floor. Her great-grandson hasn't left this place for the 2nd day in a row.
I already went twice yesterday for identification. It looked like my neighbor, but it wasn't her. Since early morning, I heard that her apartment was hit. And here she is. Her apartment is on the 6th floor. I can see the radiator. I once painted it myself. So she's still there. Because I ran over, started calling, and the phone was still ringing. I ran inside. I made it to the 5th floor, but she's on the 6th. But there, the floor slab had collapsed. The stairs had fallen in, so I couldn't get any further. I kept calling her phone. The line was ringing, and I could faintly hear the ringtone somewhere inside. She never goes anywhere without her phone, not even to the shelter, nowhere. In
this tent are those who are waiting. Relatives and friends of the residents of the destroyed building who are not answering their phones. Psychologists have gathered them all here together. They offer support through conversation, trying to ease the weight.
A mother has lost her son and is waiting. There is a man who lost his wife and children, and he too is waiting by the rubble. There is a man who cannot find his wife and is also waiting. There are all kinds of people here. There are whole families. They don't really want to communicate or talk to anyone. That's normal because that's the state they're in right now.
It's very cold outside, there's fog and a cloud of dust that makes it hard to breathe and stings the eyes. From the bricks and concrete slabs that rescuers are throwing down from above as they clear the rubble. The work doesn't stop for a moment. They say the search is complicated by the scale of the destruction.
Just how many pieces? This building is simply shattered. Heavy engineering equipment is working at the same time rescuers are working, and they are even clearing the rubble by hand. This is very hard work, and until we clear everything away, until we move these structures, until we clear the debris, we can't tell you what's happening with them and so on. We always have hope for survivors.
Several hundred rescuers from 9 regions are here. The guys take turns so they don't collapse from exhaustion. How can the townspeople help? All day long, people have been continuously bringing warm clothes for the rescuers, the victims, and food.
Sugar, food, whatever we could, we brought. This is a very difficult tragedy.
Rescuers can't predict how long it will take to clear the rubble. They say at least until the end of today. Alapasor Manduchik, Ternopil, TSN 1+1.
Rescuers are calling the rescue of a 20-year-old man from under the rubble a miracle. They described how it happened. They heard the victim's voice. His name is Bodan. They heard it during a moment of silence while inspecting the ruins with the help of a fire ladder. The young man was trapped between the 5th and 6th floors in the kitchen next to the refrigerator under a large pile of debris. While 6 emergency workers were clearing the debris, trying to get closer, they kept in constant contact with Bodan, calming him down, advising him not to shout, not to panic, and not to move so as not to waste his strength.
He was lying in a fetal position, his arms in front of him, and he had very little free space in front of him to breathe. And one hand, his right hand, was crushed by a kitchen chair. We applied a tourniquet to him. The rescue operation continued. It's a miracle that he survived. I've never seen people survive like that before. There was very little air. He said, I can't hold my neck up on my own, help me. So we started digging him out. There was a lot of debris above him and the remains of the destroyed house.
People's deputy from the Servant of the People faction, Alexander Fedienko, complained on Facebook that residents of Ternopil are writing to him, accusing him of being partly responsible for the shelling of the city. All because of a video that Fedienko published more than a month ago on his YouTube channel. The video features footage from an exhibition of electronic warfare products for the Defense Forces, and the MP himself claims that the equipment is allegedly produced in Ternopil, naming both the factory and the manufacturer. He also shows a number of technical specifications of the products. He deleted the video from his YouTube channel today, but it had already spread across the internet. Fedienko insists that the footage he published did not contain any classified information.
10,000 hryvnias. They've made it cheaper. Yes, we're at the Orion radio factory in Ternopil. By the way, this is the most reliable communication equipment. Epic.
There's less electricity. At midday, users in most regions of the country receive notifications about unscheduled power outages. And even though the current mode is already as economical as possible, for most Kiev residents, for example, electricity was scheduled to be on for only 6 to 7 hours during the day. For half an hour, from 1:30 to 2 o'clock p.m., the city experienced a total blackout. All districts were without power. However, even this mode is not enough to sustain the energy system. The main reason for this crisis is the decrease in electricity production by nuclear power plants. The IAEA reported that the Khmelnytsky and Rivne nuclear power plants reduced production on November 19th because they lost connection to the high-voltage line. The South Ukraine nuclear power plant is also experiencing power supply issues. This morning, the Ministry of Energy reported that the Russians attacked energy facilities in Chernihiv, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kharkiv regions. This also affected the situation. By evening, emergency power outages were cancelled for Kyiv, but the situation in the regions remains very difficult. Sumy region is suffering from relentless drone attacks. There, over the course of the day, the Defense Forces destroyed 61 drones, but there were also hits. At night, rescuers were extinguishing large-scale fires. 2 men died as a result of drone strikes in the Krasnopilia community and another in Velika Pisarivka. In Sumy, at least 7 drone strikes on civilian infrastructure were recorded. During the interception of the drones, a city resident was injured. A 17-year-old girl was injured during the morning shelling of Kherson by the Russians. She suffered a mine explosive injury and a concussion. It also became known about a man who was killed by a drone the day before. And near Bilozerka, 3 FPV drones attacked an ambulance. The vehicle was damaged, but the medics survived. 3 people were injured in the Pavlohrad district of Dnipropetrovsk region. One of the men is in serious condition. In the Sinelnikov community, the occupiers destroyed an administrative building with bombs and drones, and a farming enterprise. Domestic animals were killed. A food warehouse burned down in Dnipro. In Sloviansk, which is in Donetsk region, the enemy dropped 3 bombs and attacked with drones. 1 person was wounded and about 20 houses were destroyed. The invaders sent 4 drones towards Dmitrodorivka. Critical infrastructure, a school, and about a dozen private homes were hit. A local resident was injured. Huliaipole in Zaporizhzhia region and Pokrovsk in Donetsk region. These are the 2 most difficult directions on the front right now. The head of Ukrainian intelligence, Kirilo Budanov, describes the situation in Pokrovsk as extremely tense. The day before, he stated that the capture of the city by the Russians would be a major victory for them. According to the commanders of the units defending Pokrovsk, the enemy is trying to bring heavy equipment into the city. So far, they have not succeeded because our soldiers destroy it on the approaches, but the number of saboteurs in Pokrovsk is increasing. The Russians disguise themselves in civilian clothes or hide at night under thermal blankets to avoid being detected by our drones with thermal images. The Russians have also significantly strengthened drone support in the Pokrovsk direction, transferring some of their best crews here. There are so many enemy drones in Pokrovsk that it is practically impossible to enter the city. As a result, it is impossible to deliver ammunition, food, or evacuate the wounded. Enemy infantry is also currently putting heavy pressure on Huliaipole. According to deep state analysts, in that section of the front, the Russians are trying to cut off our troops' logistics. The enemy is pushing on the northern outskirts toward Huliaipole, while simultaneously advancing from the east toward the city, attempting to get behind the positions of Ukrainian defenders. According to Deep State, over the past day, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine counted along the entire front line. Thank you. 200 combat clashes. More than 18,000 soldiers from 128 countries around the world. That's how many foreign mercenaries Russia has recruited to fight against Ukraine. For example, that's more than the size of the regular armies of Austria, Albania, Latvia, Croatia, Estonia, or another 16 European countries. Among the largest donors to the invaders' army are countries from Eastern Europe, Africa, Latin America, and Central Asia. There, Russian recruiters promised men quick earnings and legal employment. At the same time, many foreigners ended up among the invaders through deception or coercion. These details are reported by the Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War. The agency also states that the deaths of 3,388 mercenaries have been officially confirmed. But unofficial figures are several times higher. Moreover, Ukraine currently holds as prisoners citizens of 37 countries who fought on the side of the occupiers. Today, another 1,000 bodies of the dead were returned to Ukraine. This was reported by the Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War. They say that this latest stage of returning the bodies was made possible with the help of Ukrainian law enforcement agencies, the State Emergency Service, the Secretariat of the Commissioner for Missing Persons, and the International Committee of the Red Cross. During the handover of the bodies, the Russians assure that all the remains belong to Ukrainian defenders. However, there have already been cases when, during repatriation, the enemy handed over to us the bodies of tortured civilian hostages or even Russian soldiers. So, once the experts and investigators have carried out all the necessary examinations to identify the remains, they will be handed over to the families for burial. In civilian life, a metallurgist; in war, a machine gunner and combat medic. A fighter of the 110th Territorial Defense Brigade, Khortytsia, with the call sign Fitil, survived 2 serious wounds, repeatedly led his comrades out of encirclement, went through the counteroffensive in Donetsk region, and knows exactly what it costs. Now undergoing rehabilitation after being wounded by an enemy mine, he told our Daria Nazarova that what brings him back to life is love and the desire to avenge his fallen comrades by fighting the occupiers.
Mikola and his girlfriend have just returned from Kyiv, where the soldier received the Order for Courage 2nd class. Walking is difficult. The injuries are taking their toll.
My arm, I'm just learning how to use it again. For 60 days it just hung there, useless. and my legs still can't walk properly for long periods.
In civilian life, he worked at Zaporizhzhia, but at war, he became a machine gunner. He went to defend the country in 2022 together with his father. In 2023, Mykola took part in the counter-offensive, helping to liberate the village of Ternopil in the Donetsk region. He was awarded the Order for Courage, 3rd class, for those battles as he and 3 comrades advanced right into the heart of the occupier's lair.
We saw several machine gun nests directly ahead of us, their presence making the situation tense. My comrade, who was right beside me, carefully showed me a grenade and pointed to the exact spot where he intended to throw it. Understanding his plan, I nodded in agreement and got ready to provide cover, making sure I was prepared to support him as he carried out his action. He ran up to the trench, threw the grenade, and we ended up in a trench where there were 25 people. He has hundreds of missions to the front line and dozens of lives saved to his name, because later Mykola became a combat medic with his fellow soldiers. He was always at the front line, and he remembers the first wounded man he saved. He was hit by a piece of shrapnel in the lungs. I saw that his lungs were punctured, and not only did he start suffocating, but he also began to sweat heavily. I carefully sealed his chest with an occlusive dressing, making sure it was secure to prevent any more air from entering the wound. Then, realizing the seriousness of his condition, I began giving clear and urgent orders to the team to organize a rapid evacuation as quickly as possible. And
Mykola received his first serious wound in 2024. Back then, he says, the enemy assaulted their positions every day and the soldiers were encircled twice. During another Russian attack, an enemy shell exploded right next to his face. At that time, despite the enemy's numerical superiority, Mykola and his comrades still held their positions, for which he was awarded the Order for Courage, 2nd class.
every day vehicles would come in, every day, 2 or 3 times a day, every single day. Constant infantry and assault actions non-stop. Every day there were constant airdrops.
After rehabilitation, he returned to duty again. In March 2025, he became a company commander. He was seriously wounded for the 2nd time near Huliaipole in Donetsk region. A mine exploded near his feet,
For me, the tourniquets were on for 6 hours. I thought they were going to amputate already.
We waited about 2 to 2.5 hours for the result. They brought him in and said the surgery was done. Everything was fine, everything was normal, everything was stable. From
the other side, he says it was love that saved him. He met Irina almost a year ago on social media.
From the photos, I figured out where she worked, came over and introduced myself.
Since then, they say they didn't notice the distance because they were always in touch. Now Irina and their daughter Anya are helping him get back on.
His feet were firmly planted on the ground, toes slightly apart, providing him with a stable and balanced stance as he stood quietly. Looking forward, there is something important waiting for us just ahead, signaling the next step in our journey and inviting us to move onward with anticipation and purpose.
Of the man is a long rehabilitation, but he is sure he will manage so he can return to his comrades. He knows how important it is to keep up the fighting spirit, and that's how he sees himself even in old age.
As a cheerful and optimistic grandpa, because you always have to make sure to stay positive and keep a bright outlook on life, no matter what happens.
Daria Nazarova, Ivan Koroshko, Andriy Kupovka, Zaporizhzhia, TSN 1+1.
The European Union welcomes efforts to end the war in Ukraine, but any such plan must involve Ukraine and Europe. This was emphasized by the EU's chief diplomat, Kaja Kallas, who noted that news about the emergence of a peace plan will be discussed at the EU Foreign Affairs Council meeting, and that in this war there is only one aggressor and one victim. This statement was made against the backdrop of reports from several media outlets about a new 28-point American peace plan, which Trump's team allegedly developed together with the Russians. In particular, the American side was represented by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who worked on it, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. Among the details of this plan that have appeared in the press are points that allegedly provide for handing over the entire Donbass to Russia, Ukraine making concessions on weapons, halving our army, and agreeing to Russian as a second official language. According to NBC News, Trump has already approved this peace plan this week. Now they want to hand the document over to Kyiv. However, American officials who spoke to the press are not disclosing all the details of the plan and assure that it may be adjusted. In your opinion, has Trump really agreed to Russia's demands from as far back as 2022? What could convince him? And how will the negotiation process develop further? Write everything you think in the comments to this episode on YouTube. I would also appreciate it if you give our broadcast a like and subscribe to the channel. And I continue with the news from TSN because there's still a lot more. Important? $100 million for American weapons for Ukraine. Poland has joined the PURL initiative. This was announced by the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski. They want to transfer the money for the urgent purchase of American weapons by the end of the year. According to Poland's top diplomat, the $100 million is already in the country's budget. The program for allies to purchase American weapons was presented by President Trump and the NATO Secretary General in the summer. A number of countries are already participating in the mechanism. And recently, Spain, Germany, and the countries of Northern Europe and the Baltics announced new contributions. We're talking about hundreds of millions of euros. Explosions in Russia. In particular, drones have once again struck Ryazan. And according to local Telegram channels, they once again hit the local oil refinery. Eyewitnesses report that at least 10 powerful explosions were heard in Ryazan that night. Russians filmed a fire at the premises of some enterprise on their phones. Online sources insist that it is indeed the Ryazan oil refinery. The last time this facility was attacked by Ukrainian drones was just 5 days ago. Russian Telegram channels also report that several substations in the Kursk region were attacked overnight. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has promised long-range weapons to the Ukrainian army. He revealed that in recent months, Berlin has been working intensively with the Ukrainian government on the implementation of projects that are technically referred to, I quote, as long-range fire. According to the Chancellor, the Ukrainian army will be equipped with such weapon systems. When asked whether Germany would supply us with Taurus missiles, Merz did not give an answer, but emphasized that there should remain a certain degree of uncertainty for Russia regarding aid to Ukraine. Therefore, the details of military support are not discussed publicly. The Chancellor of Germany also emphasized that Berlin literally is doing everything possible to equip the Ukrainian army with weapon systems and with sufficient range, and that in the coming weeks and months, their number will only increase. The EU's military Schengen. Against the backdrop of the Russian threat, European countries want to increase the mobility of their troops. In particular, they want to reduce the time it takes to move troops across borders from 45 days to just 3, and in emergency situations to as little as 6 hours. They aim to implement the military mobility zone by the end of 2027. Ukraine is also expected to be included in these corridors. According to local media reports, our country could gain significant advantages in improving dual-use transport infrastructure, streamlining the rules for transporting military equipment, and standardizing border crossing procedures throughout Europe. The European Union is also looking for ways to deliver military cargo to our country more quickly. In particular, one of these routes may run through Romania and Moldova. A major scandal involving well-known names. The President of the United States has signed a law on the publication of the Epstein files. These documents may contain information about people and organizations connected to the notorious tycoon. The Epstein case has taken on a scandalous turn in the United States in recent weeks. Multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein died in prison 6 years ago. He was accused of organizing prostitution, hosting parties on his private island where he invited wealthy and famous guests. The case materials also mention Donald Trump, though he himself denies any involvement and calls these insinuations. The names of many other well-known people also appear there, for example, former British Prince Andrew and former US President Bill Clinton. Now, under pressure from Parliament and the public, Donald Trump has finally ordered the release of all Justice Department materials related to the Epstein case. This could happen within 30 days. The US Attorney General reported that there are 33,000 documents involved. However, some of them may be released with restrictions, particularly those concerning the billionaire's victims, in order to protect them. The case of the Nord Streams. Italy has decided to extradite to Germany the Ukrainian man suspected of involvement in the sabotage of the Russian gas pipelines. The Supreme Court of Italy rejected Serhiy Kuznetsov's appeal, so within a few days he was handed over to German law enforcement and transferred to that country. However, Kuznetsov's lawyer promises to continue the fight now in Germany. He says that there, his colleagues will finally be able to substantiate and expand upon the prepared legal arguments. Let me remind you, German investigators suspect Kuznetsov of planting explosive devices on the Nord Stream pipelines in September 2022. He is accused of conspiracy to cause an explosion, unconstitutional sabotage, and destruction of important facilities.